What if there was a process that would help you minimize the quote unquote bad decisions that you make and actually increase the number of good decisions that you make? And I'm not talking like the little decisions we need to make every day, like what are we going to eat tonight or have for breakfast or something along those lines, but the big ones where it's like, am I in the right relationship? Should I make a career move? Should I move in this direction or should I move in that direction? Would something like that be valuable to you if there was a process that would help you to access the place inside yourself that ultimately knows what the best decision is for you at that point in time? This is something that I've been doing for a while now. When I first came across this work about, gosh, maybe 12 years ago, and I started to implement this specific exercise that I'm going to talk to you about. And what it does is it helps us get out of the strict linear logical mind and get back to a very powerful place of intuition and more from the heart as opposed to the brain. And what I find really valuable about this is that most of the time when we're trying to make decisions, we usually get into our pros and cons list and we go through all these different things, and it's a very linear, logical process. Sometimes that can be valuable, but when we're really making important decisions, I want to access a different form of information that's going to bring insights to me that I really can actually feel tangibly and that I know inside myself that that is the right decision for me. The other key thing is that a lot of times when we are making decisions, we're making them from a place that's already a little bit stressed, or we're a little bit frazzled, or we're a little bit overwhelmed or confused. And so we're not really in the right state of mind, so to speak, in order to make those decisions. And what's actually been shown is that when we are in that place, we don't make very good decisions. And I think right now it's incredibly important that we are able to access information in a way that's really going to be supportive for us. So this has come up a fair bit with a lot of patients that I've been talking to, and even different comments that have come up through the podcast with different people struggling with some of these concerns around making decisions and being and hoping that they're going to make the right decision. So what I've created is an actual meditation. This is a free download, and I want everybody to go check it out. You can download it for free. There's also a PDF that will come with it too, so that you can actually walk through the process and you can just sit back, close your eyes, and listen to the meditation and see, and then ask yourself these different questions. One thing that I always do is I will sometimes ask myself the question when that I'm wanting an answer to when I am currently in a bit of like a flustered or stressed space, and see what comes up automatically as I'm asking that question. And then I'll actually go and do this exercise and ask myself the same question and see if I get the same answer. And vast majority of the time, I will get a very different answer when I'm in that place. Now, what I found is that the more that I have done this practice, the more that I have actually learned to trust my first decision that I make, because I think the more we do this, the more we start to actually live in this space more and more and more. But this exercise is a really powerful way to access this type of information and then learn to start to trust the sensations that come up in your body when you ask yourself these specific questions and get different answers, and the way that your body actually informs you. So I'm just check out the Inspire Health podcast, the homepage. We should have that up by now. If not, it'll be up this week. But just check that, and it's just going to be called Accessing Your Heart's Wisdom. And you will see that as a free link. So you can just click that and download the MP3 file as well as the PDF file. So play with that. And if you think that's valuable, share that with other people. And I'd love to hear some feedback on what comes up for you when you have been dealing with a specific challenge that you're struggling with trying to make a decision on. And then, did this exercise actually help you? Did you get a different answer when you arrived at the place that the meditation takes you? And then ask yourself the same question. So check that up. That's a free gift that I created for everybody to go and use, because I think we all need a little bit of support in being able to make really good decisions for ourselves at this point in time. While you are there, you will also see something called Inspire Life Multiversity. Now, this has not been launched yet. We are in the process of setting this up. So feel free to click that as well and just go on the wait list, and we'll send you more information once we get everything put together. But this is something that Tay and I are really excited about. We are creating this platform where we are going to be able to start to bring to you in very tangible ways, in doable steps within your world, some of the teachings that you are learning from many of our top guests. And so we are going to be creating some of the different courses and whatnot for you to really implement some of the teachings into your life in a very practical way. We'll be doing them ourselves. We'll be starting to gradually collaborate with some of the different guests as well. So that is going to be a really exciting project that we will have for you guys over the course of 2023. That's going to start to kick out. So click that link and just put your info down, and then we'll touch base with you as we are ready to start to launch that. But we've got a couple that are going to be coming up over this next while. So stay tuned for that too, because I think some really exciting information that we will be able to bring to you all. The other thing is, while you're there, if you haven't yet, click on books and check out my newest book on natural first aid essentials for every family. That is the ebook that I created where, because I want you to have access to it on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, wherever you are, so that when you're traveling, when you're at home, whenever you need it, you have access to the information at hand to help you deal with a myriad of different health challenges that you may come across. And it will also help you put together your own natural first aid kit so that you can deal with it and have the right stuff there on hand when you need it. So check all of that stuff out. Let us know how things are going and if there's anything else that we can create for you guys that would be supportive when it comes to courses that we are going to be offering through the Inspire Life Multiversity. If there's specific topics that you would love to take a deeper dive on, let us know as well, and we will do the best we can to try and create as much support as we can for everybody throughout this year and the next several years. So now, I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Dimitri. This whole series has been phenomenal. This is actually the fifth episode in our current series on life, death, and beyond, exploring our greater reality. And this episode with Dimitri was wonderful as well. Really, really tapped in person, and I love the information that he shared. All of these I feel are so heartwarming. I feel like as we explore this more and more, we will continually strip away the layers of fear and worry around death and open up to something maybe much bigger than any of us have been aware of just by hearing the insights from these amazing speakers as we go along. So thank you all so much for joining in with us on this series, and we will talk to you soon. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health Podcast as we continue on with our series on life, death, and beyond, exploring our greater reality. And this has been a really phenomenal series so far. And we're only, I think, our fourth episode into it. And we have had a lot of feedback, a lot of people really enjoying the episodes, a lot of people getting challenged on even concepts that they've held around life, death, and beyond. And that's part of the whole purpose of this series, is to just bring in lots of different information and see what lands for people and just sort of expand our boundaries on what we think is possible and what we think we know. And so today we're bringing another phenomenal guest, Dimitri Moraitis. Not sure if I said that quite right again, Dimitri, with my lousy Greek accent. But Dimitri is the co-founder and co-spiritual director of Spiritual Arts Institute. Dimitri is an Illumined metaphysical teacher, healer, and co-author of numerous books, as well as co-creator of the Spiritual Art Institute programs, course curriculums, and numerous workshops with the mystic clairvoyant Barbara Y. Martin. Dimitri has been instrumental in bringing Spiritual Arts Institute to the place it is today as a premier metaphysical school. With Barbara, he is the co-author of the international bestseller Change Your Aura, Change Your Life, Communing with the Divine, Karma and Reincarnation, The Healing Power of Your Aura, and their newest highly acclaimed book, Heaven and Your Spiritual Evolution. This is the book that we've been diving into over the last little while, and we're excited to talk to Dimitri about today. So Dimitri, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's a delight to be here.
You're welcome. Now that I remember to actually hit record and we can actually start this off on a good step, maybe I can ask you again about your spiritual awakening, because I know when I was reading through your book, and it sounds like Barbara, right from when I think she was 3, was tapped right in, and then you were in a sort of a different venue for a while, and then had an awakening and really had a calling to this sort of work. I wonder if you can share with us a little bit about your story and how you and Barbara even met.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, I have to bring Barbara in. Um, Even though now we work so well together, our journeys to where we are did come from very different locations. Most people think, you're born with whatever talents you're going to have, and that, you work with. In Barbara's case, yes, she was born basically with, they used to call her the Mozart of metaphysics because she had so many talent. It wasn't one talent, it was multiple talent. And they weren't just a little bit there, they were really there. But even in her case, for example, there's a huge difference between a clairvoyant and a trained clairvoyant. Those are two very different roads. So let's say in her case, she grew up in the Depression era in the United States. Father was a Greek Orthodox priest, and he was a builder of churches. So the whole family, he raised a family of 6 kids with his wife on, $80 a month. And they would travel from city to city, literally build up, get the congregation brick by brick, build up that church. Then the diocese would send them somewhere else. And this was just when literally things were getting established. The Greek priests, they like to wear their long beards. He said, no, we're in the United States. We got to be modern. We got to be hip. We got to be with the groups that are here. So he was very, very contemporary for his time, and in a way risque. He loved to joke. He loved to prank. A priest doing these things. And Barbara had to travel to all these cities and towns. And at 3 years old, she started seeing the aura. She didn't know what it meant. She couldn't find anything about it in books at that time. She just thought it was natural. She would get in trouble when she would say things, because they didn't understand what was going on. And at first they thought, oh my God, she's got something wrong with her kidneys, something wrong with her eyes. She's describing these things and nothing was wrong. 11 years old, she's in Kansas City, Missouri, and father's building up a church there. And she joins a theater stock company. She enjoys acting. And the woman, which actually was famous for what she did, said, I want you to come in on a Saturday privately. And basically said, you can see the aura, can't you? And Barbara's jaw dropped. She said, is that what it's called? Didn't even have a name for it. Says, well, I can see the aura too. I'm a Hermetic scientist. My mother, my grandmother were all Hermetic scientists. And I want to teach you about your gifts. And she had these handwritten books, which I'm sorry you cannot get on Amazon, sacred writings, but they started explaining things like what the aura meant and the colors, what they mean and all that. So she certainly learned how to interpret. Well, when the family moved to Los Angeles, the mom said, I'm not moving anymore. If the diocese sends you somewhere else, you go where you have to go. The family's staying here because they fell in love with, this was like the golden age of Hollywood time. And Barbara started to develop the gift stronger without telling her whole story right now. She was initially pursuing a career in entertainment, but literally the hire came and said, no, you're meant to be a metaphysical teacher. And she gave up this lucrative offers and things like that to pursue this very uncertain path at that time. But she met another mystic, Inez, who trained her to be a teacher. Inez taught only privately, but she said, you're going to go on the public platform. So Barbara was one of the first to lecture on the aura in depth and all these things that were going on. So truly a pioneer. Now, I came to Los Angeles. I grew up in the Midwest, basically. I'm born in Denver and spent some time in Canada, but mainly grew up in the Midwest. I had more of an artistic background. I played classical piano and was trained in film and television. So I came to LA thinking, I'm going to be a movie maker. And that was the road. It was actually going quite well in the beginning. I didn't know anything about metaphysics. I wasn't pro or against it. It just wasn't on my radar. And I was born Greek Orthodox. I wasn't anti-religion, but I wasn't also very religious. It was just sort of maybe agnostic kind of. But I was starting to have these, I just call them inspirational moments, very heightened levels of clarity and insight. They came by themselves. They left by themselves. I treasured the moments when they were there, but again, no language. And then it got so strong, it became this, I call it my Saul on the road to Damascus moment, fundamentally changed. And even then I didn't have the language. Some said, oh, you had a religious awakening. I said, it doesn't quite feel like that. Then when they said metaphysics, then the light bulbs went on. And then I couldn't get enough of it. And a year later, I happened to meet Barbara at a dinner party. A friend of mine said, "Oh, we're doing this friend of ours is doing a meditation." First time I did that. Stepping in that meditation, it was like an old door opening up, but also it's like I was getting into that same mode, but this was now in an organized environment. It wasn't just happening by itself. So I started to realize, wait a minute, there's a method of doing this. And then afterwards, I started talking with Barbara. I had a lot to pour out. She says, "You were interrogating me that night." I thought it was a nice conversation, but I realized she's talking from experience and she's giving language to experiences I couldn't even begin to understand what they were. I mean, from an organizational point of view. So I said that night, "This is my teacher. I found her," you know. And then we started there. We started writing right away. She said, "I've never written stuff." She says, "Just start." And that's what we tell our students. When you're hesitating something, just start. Just don't think about it too much. You'll know once you're doing it if it's working or not. And then eventually, she worked very inspirationally. And we had literally encyclopedia of notes. So we got to organize all this. And then it led to writing the books. It led to starting the organization to give a home for these teachings and an orientation. Now, our first book that you mentioned, the Change Your Life, that kind of tells the world what we do. We meditate with divine light. That's our methodology of working. This latest book, the Heaven in Your Spiritual Evolution book, tells the world who we are. We're a spiritual growth organization. And I am still amazed even today. If you ask people in this field, what is spiritual growth? You'll get 50 different answers talking to 50 different people. Now, if you ask what's the road to becoming a doctor or what's the road to becoming a lawyer, you don't get 50 different answers. You say, no, this is the way. You may go to different schools, but here's the path. But this is just as specific and detailed, but many people just don't understand what the path actually looks like. So the goal of the book was to paint that picture. What does spiritual growth really look like? And how are you connected to that now? And hopefully the goal was to make this part of your life an even higher priority. I'm sure most of the people listening to you right now have had their own spiritual awakening. And that's not an accident. That's God knocking on your door. Are you answering that call, or are you making it like a bunch of other things that you're doing? So that's really why we wrote the book. And from the clairvoyant book, Barbara starts to talk about the spiritual dimensions from her own experiences, because people don't realize the other side is not just for that time when we die. That other side is supporting the journey right this very minute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. And that's really why we're doing this series too, because we kind of find as people even explore these concepts, it impacts how they live their life in the
Yeah,
here and now and makes a dramatic change in it. So
it's got to
it's
be useful.
why,
It's not
yeah,
useful. That's the
a-
point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain for people when what is a spiritual awakening and what can how does that sort of change people's lives? Because I feel like sometimes people think it has to be just this, you know, flash of light, and there's pictures to it. I mean, I
Yeah.
can honestly say I know when I feel like I had my first
There
experience
you
like
go.
that.
There you go. There you go. You wouldn't be doing this show, right? You'd be pursuing this.
No, for sure. And I know when I did, I would say there was a mix between being like so drawn and knowing something was so important, and at the same point feeling like in many ways my life as I knew it was dismantling and falling apart, often at the same time. I'm wondering, like, from your perspective, to maybe even shine a light for people that are questioning what that process can be like. How does that sort of show up, and how does it inform your life in a different way?
Well, so we all know now that we're on this road, we understand we're not a physical body. We are not our body. We are a soul inhabiting our body, and that soul is immortal. It is going to go on long after this physical form says bye bye. Yes, but because we're so focused in this world, even if we live let's say even a religious life growing up or whatever, we can still be very kind of physically focused. And the spiritual awakening is the divine stirring the internal reality that's in you into an awareness. Now, it's not a booming voice saying, yes, I am waking you up now. Hear what I say. Or it isn't like, it's the angels. It isn't necessarily like that. And everyone's awakening is different because the divine has to reach them according to their karmic chart and according to what their life path is afterwards. I mean, I could have still pursued a career in movies. That could have been my path, even though I had an awakening, but it ended up not being. So my awakening was to help me in the journey that I was going to go on. And your awakening is helping you in the journey that you're going on, So, but what happens is once the stirring, and by the way, it's done for you. You don't wake yourself up. I've had people literally ask me, well, how do you have an awakening? Because I think they kind of see, this sounds like kind of fun, Yeah. I said, I don't know how mine happened. You can't make, and this is why we tell people, don't push this work on people that haven't had their awakening, because they're not, it could actually disturb them. And my mistake when I first did is it was so exciting. I was a little too blabby, and Barbie used to say, shh, don't talk so much, because I didn't realize other people would not be able to relate or get excited like I did. So, because it has to come from within you. Now, once that, and there's a timing. Now, the other thing we say is Earth is a school for everyone. We just hit the 8 billion mark. Can you believe it? 8 billion souls on Earth. India just passed China as the most populous nation on Earth, right? So this whole school is a school for 8 billion people, but we are all growing in our own pace. Max Heindel, the great Rosicrucian, described kind of two versions of this: the great spiral, gentle but upward, which everybody's going, even if they don't put the word spiritual in their thing, and the others he called the straight and narrow, the path of initiation. So if we go through a life where we have not had our awakening, it means we're growing through the experiences that we're doing and the way we're perceiving it. But if we've had our awakening, this incarnation is the time to take the more accelerated path, because now there is an awareness. Oh, wait a minute. Things are not what they quite seem. So it's a calling in a way, or the beginning of a calling. Now, some people take it to an extreme. They think their awakening is their enlightenment. It's the road to enlightenment. It's a long ways. The awakening is it's like saying, yeah, I want to be a doctor. That doesn't make you one. You're going to have to go through at least 12 years of training before you even can begin to get your license, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the beginning of the journey, but it is, like I like to say to our students, the most exciting adventure there is, because you have to develop every part of yourself, not just one part. If you're going to evolve the soul, every facet of the soul and your talents and your expression and your character, all of it needs to be developed. And that's what makes it so interesting.
Dimitri, from your perspective and through your insights, what is it about this particular time that we're in that allows us this accelerant path to awakening?
So that's a great question, because we're all feeling it's not just the technologies that are happening now, and there's something else that's going on, because it's funny, the Catholic Church was trying to do a study of this, and it wasn't supposed to be always a compliment, but they remarked, well, this is just happening everywhere. There's no one person leading this. It's not one part of the world. It's kind of like a grass that's now growing all over the planet. What is going on? And what we have to realize is a couple of things. Everything in life is in motion. The planet itself is evolving. Civilization, meaning us as a collective group of people in every country on Earth, is evolving. And we do go through these periods where things are kind of a little bit leveled off. And then where there's a growth spurt, we're in this growth spurt right now. There are fundamental things that are coming in, meaning powers from the divine that are inspiring millions of people. This is the time not to sit on the fence. This is the time to take that yoke of light and move forward. So yes, you want, as Barbara said, there's never been a better time to grow spiritually than today. And the other exciting thing is, and I'm sure you know, you and I would not be having these conversations right now 150 years ago, we'd have to be in a mystery school, we'd have to be in an ashram. They were not discussed openly in public. Even in India, till fairly recent time, an average Indian didn't understand what a chakra was. These were secret teachings. And for these things now to kind of be more available, it means there's just so many people interested. It's almost like the world is becoming like a mystery school, you know, and we're still in the early stages of this. It's like all these traditions have not really been talking directly to each other, so words can be confusing. When Richard Gerber, unfortunately, he passed on, that guy wrote Vibrational Medicine, great, you know, he endorsed our healing book, and he sent Barbara this beautiful letter saying, you know, I've been researching this for 30 years. It's just contradictory. This tradition says this tradition says that. And now I realize from your book that they're speaking of the same thing, but using different language. And then when you start to see it, you see these common threads that have been there in all the traditions. You know, all great mystical traditions of the earth come from the higher. It's nothing self-created, you know, in that way. So this is the time where many more people are getting their calling, but are you answering? Are you responding to that? That's the real question right now. And look, you're a couple that are sharing the path. What happens if one of you had the awakening, but your spouse did not? Mm-hmm. You know, Barbie used to say one of the biggest reasons people left the classes in the beginning was at the insistence of a spouse. You're spending too much time with that Barbara. It was almost like a jealousy, you know, because they could feel their spouse was emotionally getting involved in something that they were not part of. We would say, just love them all the more, but be true to yourself. If they really love you, they will get it. There was a friend of Barbara's, the husband, very bright guy, high up in the world he was in, business-wise, thought this was all nonsense. And she was getting so upset and it was affecting marriage. She was, you know, planning to leave him. And he must have picked it up, right? And he completely changed his tone. Now, he never got into it, but he let her friends come in and have parties about it. And then the relationship, you know, came back to actually better than it was before. But they did hit that crisis point where she was basically saying, I've got to do this. I hope you're going to be here for the ride with me, but I got to do this. And he loved her too much to say, bye-bye, I'm not going to lose her over this. You know, so you have to be true to yourself. If you're fortunate enough to be in an environment that supports you, wonderful. If not, that's why, like, being part of these shows or other communities, it's one of the things I love about teaching is it's the community of people. They're all trying to share the same journey, and we reinforce and support each other. And I know since COVID, everybody's doing Zoom and stuff, but we were doing video in 2006, right? So we've known the value of video conferencing. We also have a center in Encinitas, so you can come physically in person, or you can join from around the world. And we have people in Japan, they're joining the classes at 3 a.m, God bless them. That's determination. They are very disciplined.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Jason was joking about this earlier, where, you know, the spiritual awakening is not necessarily seeing the bright light and having these aha moments. It can oftentimes be gut-wrenching and heartbreaking and tormenting, because it leaves you kind of questioning the totality of your life and every relationship possibly that you've been in, your work, the endeavors that you've taken thus far. It kind of causes you to reevaluate all of it. And I was wondering what you would say with regards to suffering. Like, what role does suffering play in helping us to actually arrive at a spiritual awakening?
Well, it's a great question. All the interviews I've done, no one's asked me that question. It's such an important one. First of all, just to backtrack, yes, the awakening does not have to be sudden like Saul on the road to Damascus. It can happen over stages of time where things are starting to shift. It can even start as early as childhood, where you're a kid and you're questioning life at 6 years old, you know, or you don't question till you're 60 years old. So when it happens, again, that's according to just our karmic chart. But what happens is there's a saying in the work, when you have your awakening, it's the time of division and decision, because there is a division that happens. Here you've been living this life, and then something says, wait a minute. And yes, there can be a feeling of difficulty at that time. Now, it's a strange phenomenon, but it's often in suffering that the soul actually really awakens. Because if things were comfortable and easy, the soul tends to want to say, I'm fine the way I am. It's not till something sometimes pricks it. As Shakespeare said, spur the side of my intent, that it has to wake up. Look, physical, just purely pain. If I put my hand on a hot stove, the pain tells me to step away. Ow, that really hurt. It would hurt a lot more if you lost your hand in the fire and you didn't feel it. In the same way, sometimes our soul, when it does not understand the laws of life yet, it's suffering and maybe doing something that's wrong, not in alignment with the divine plan. One of the things you learn about the aura is there are spiritual laws, as there are physical laws. You break a spiritual law, you're going to feel it. It's not going to be pleasant, but it's not for its own sake. It's to give the better. The great story of Job, right? Why would a righteous man suffer horribly? But most people don't remember the end of that story. He loses everything, right? He loses everything he has. And even his body, he gets these boils and welts on it. It's just like every suffering thing you can imagine this one guy is going through. But I love what Blavatsky said about that, the great mystic. She said, the story of Job is the story of initiation par excellence. We have to go through these trials. And what happened at the end? Job got everything back 10 times over. You look at the great hero journey that Joseph Campbell talked about. It's struggle. The hero may die in the last page of the story. You don't know till the very end. Are you even going to make it? The journey to enlightenment is not an easy one. But there's nothing, you're going to climb Mount Everest, not with just some hiking boots. You've got to really, really, really plan this out. But we have the power, the capacity to do that when the time is right. The soul can achieve that. But we must remember, one of the big mistakes is a lot of organizations have made enlightenment sound easy. 5 easy steps. I don't want to name names, but there was a very famous one years ago, said, follow this, 5 years you'll be enlightenment. He wanted to have a whole stadium filled with enlightened people. That was 30 years ago. I don't see any stadium filled with enlightened people. There is no simple 5-step process to enlightenment. That's like saying to a little kid, follow these 5 steps and you'll be a grown-up. Remember that story of Big, the kid that wanted to be adult? Mm-hmm. He wasn't an adult, but he was still in a child consciousness. And that was what the humor was, right? You have to go through all the stages of growth. That's what it's about. Opportunities than ever before. This university, schoolhouse earth is getting more teachers, more help, more whatever you want to call it than ever before. So you've got opportunities to make a leap. Now, one other big thing we say in the book, and it's the backbone of our training, is you have a potential. So in the book, we say you don't go to heaven, you grow to heaven. Heaven is an evolutionary process. It's not, oh, I'm a good boy, I'm a good girl, I'm going to go to heaven because I've been good. Well, it means you're going to do well, but it doesn't mean you're ready for the heaven worlds. That's a process of many, many lifetimes to evolve to that. And we're all destined there. It's not a matter of if we're going to get there. Everyone is a mystic in the making. But in this incarnation, this little time we have in this lap on earth, what is my potential? If I'm at this point right now, the ultimate goal is here. It's going to take X amount of lifetimes to get there. How far up can I go in this incarnation? And we call that portion your spiritual potential. And your assignment in this life is to hit that potential. And all of them may be different. Maybe yours is to go here, yours is to go there. It's not a race with each other, but it is, am I really doing everything I can to stretch my spiritual wings to reach the farthest that I can reach in this life. We don't want to just leave this life better than the way we found it. Of course, we want to do that. We want to leave this life at a higher level of consciousness than when we started. And that takes effort. And sometimes, the funny part is, sometimes we're growing the most when there is some suffering going on, because that's what's really stirring the soul. It doesn't feel like it at the time. But when you look back later, you say, wow, I guess I did do a lot there. It certainly didn't feel like it while I was going through it. But yeah, that's what was happening. So don't be afraid of some difficult days. If people get on the thing, oh, everything's fine, everything's good, that's not the spiritual path. The spiritual path isn't going to make things easier. It's going to empower you so you feel in control of your life. You feel you are the artist of your life rather than the victim. As Barbara would say, do you want to be the master or the victim of your own life? And when people start complaining about all the problems, you're just victimizing yourself. Stop doing that. Stop throwing all those gloom and doom scenarios. What's your role? And you focus on what you need to do. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah. And Dimitri, on the same side of that, as much as I know we can get very easily kind of dive into all that's going to go wrong and kind of get in this negative future fantasy spiral, I feel like the other
movies about that.
And I
no
feel
one's done Bacon's vision of the future of the great new Atlantis, right? That's going to be this utopia. Someone's got to come out with that movie.
But I feel like on the flip side of that, the other thing that happens is there's also this sort of only kind of focus on, this sort of high vibe, sort of only stay positive, but it right. doesn't feel real. And so right. when right. you're navigating this, to me, it's like, how do you just show up being very real, but not diving into any of it too far? Because to me, those are the two flip sides that often I think get challenges. Like, don't go over here, just stay positive and kind of do this. But then I feel like that's not really real either.
See, that's a big misnomer about positive thinking. Most people, again, we're there. This area was in the Guinness Book of World Records for a while of having the most yoga studios in a 20 square mile area, right? And again, a lot of people are like, oh, everything's, we call it the kumbaya moment, where everybody's just happy and it's just kind of like this. And that is not the spiritual path. Now, when you're with friends and you're in kind of a loving place, of course, there's going to be a sense of joy, but you're meant to confront the challenges of life, like you say, real, not pretend like they're not there. But where positive thinking helps is when you get into that hopeless state. In other words, the situation is hopeless. Nothing will fix it ever. That will lead you down the wrong road.
Yeah.
Now, but if you say, wait a minute, now there's where an affirmation can help. No, there's a divine solution to every problem. There is a solution to this. God is bigger than this problem, and God can help me. And I'm not going to run away. I'm going the opposite. I'm going to go right into the problem to solve it, not to get lost in it. Now, whether I succeed or not, that's not in my hands, but I can do my part to learn the things I need to do. I'm not going to shy away from life. I'm here to experience life. So what the positive thinking does is it keeps the mind from getting into these dark states. Look, there in your aura, we have a mental chakra right here. This is our next book is on consciousness. And there are energies radiating from here. And if I am in a despairing moment, those energies are dark and brooding, and it's just going to reinforce my despair. So you got to change that energy around, because you're steering the ship of your life from your mind. And if the captain is saying, oh, we're going to go down, this ship is sinking, well, there's a better chance that's what's going to happen, rather than saying, how can I at least try to navigate this? Maybe the ship will sink, but darn it if I ain't going to do my best to keep it afloat. That's where positive thinking can help. But people, again, like you're saying, they try to oversimplify things. It's just this. It's not just one thing. There is no just one thing. In the latter part of the 19th century, there was a literalism in the Bible. That wasn't necessarily there before, that every word in the Bible is literally true word for word. It's a simplistic view of life. and it's just not true. And Bert Ehrman tells a great story. He believed that. And when he read the original Greek of the New Testament, he realized it's not all the same. That isn't the literal word that I'm reading. And it flipped things around. So yeah, we have to take the essence of the teaching and see, okay, how is it helping? But not think it's just this and I don't have to do anything. Look, what astrology people are, I'm not going out of the house today, the stars are not aligned right. No, that's not what that's saying. There are dynamics in our life, but we have our free will. And our free will is the most dominant factor in our life right now. The choices we are making right now. The choices we made in the past brought us to where we are. The choices we're making right now are determining our future. So you're absolutely right. You have to be real. You have to be a part of life, but not see, there is this conundrum, be a part of it, but not be of it. Mm-hmm. You are in this world, but not of it. But that doesn't mean don't be a part of it. In our teaching of meditation, we say, look, meditation is your time to commune, be one with the divine. But when you finish, you're meant to apply that light in your life. For example, you can bring in what we call the deep rose pink, which brings in compassion and love. We had a doctor once, he said, he's frank with us, not very compassionate with my patients. I see so many, it's kind of in and out every day. And he knew something had to change. So he said, well, work with the deep rose pink. He did, but that ray would have been useless if he didn't do something about it. So what did he do? He spent literally more time with his patients. He actually looked at them as human beings, not petri dishes. And not only that his patients, he'd do better, but his practice got even busier because people said, this guy's got great bedside manners. So that's what we mean. You take the powers, but then you apply them in what you're doing in your life. And then you start to see the changes. And you don't need to be clairvoyant. You just know, wow, I'm going to work much more with this deep rose pink ray. Look at what's happening.
Well, that's one of the things I really appreciated about the work that you and Barbara do, is that there is the emphasis on, work on the metaphysical aspects of it, and then apply it in your life. Exactly. It's like through the doing of it, you really are now actually making more of it and making a change in this physical reality.
It's taking the beingness into the doingness that RJ mentioned too.
Yeah. That's it's not cemented until you make it expressive. Mm. We say truth is not truth until it lives in your heart. It's just an idea. Mm-hmm. And the only way for it to live in your heart is to live it in your life.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's the only way that's going to happen. Yeah. So don't run away from life. Yeah. Make it practical. The problem with some metaphysics is people do learn a lot of things in their head and it starts to go to their head. Oh, you see, I know all about this. And you think suddenly you're more evolved than other people. And there can be others that are doing a better job than you because they're actually living the truth. As Barbara would say, what's the point of going to church on Sunday than cheating your partners on Monday?
Yeah. Dimitri, I remember doing going to lectures with Dr. David Hawkins back in the day. And he would say one of the biggest things that sort of sneaks up with when people are getting more aware of spirituality and following that sort of path is this concept of moral superiority. We kind of take it to then use again as another way of just becoming superior than someone else. So I always think that's a good one for us to reflect on if we're stepping into that sort of feeling of moral superiority, because it's like anything, it can be used in that way too if we're not being aware of it.
Because we got to remember, this is not coming from us, this is coming through us. When Barbara was a teenager, she said that the gifts were I wasn't doing anything, they were just pouring out. One time I knew what the teacher was going to ask. I knew the answer to the question before she even asked the question. And she said, I did get a little cocky. I don't know if she's the word cocky, but she did start to think she was, the cat's meow. And then one day, again, this, she skipped 2 years. So this is like a 14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl having these experiences, right? So one day she said, it all disappeared. All the talents, everything. And it stayed like that for 2 weeks. And then she thought, oh my God, is this all over? And then it dawned on her. She said, oh, this is the higher doing it. They're teaching me. They're telling me your gifts aren't coming from you. They're coming through you. And she said, I never took my talents for granted after that again. So yeah, the power, this is why I say the purpose of life is to glorify God, not ourselves. Meaning, let the glory of life flow through you and you will be blessed. But if you turn it to you, that's just egotism. And nobody likes an egotist, and especially nobody likes a spiritual egotist.
It's like an oxymoron.
It totally is an oxymoron.
Dimitri, I was wondering if you can speak to us about heaven and hell.
Go, heaven and hell, fire and brimstone.
Yeah. Let's dive in.
Yeah. Well, we all know the kind of, I think interesting enough, in writing the heaven book, every tradition speaks of heaven. It's a fascinating thing. You think it's really just a kind of a Christian concept. Not at all. The Buddhists have a very complicated story of heaven. Every tradition has it. We all know Muhammad's night journey going through the seven heavens to the throne of God. So this is a well-known thing. But if you ask the average person, they kind of think, well, there's heaven here, there's hell here. We're kind of in the middle. We live good, we go to heaven. We live bad, we go to hell. It's there's that simplistic, oversimplistic picture. So the thing to remember with this is we are this immortal soul. The soul is inherently good. It may do terrible things, but the soul, the life itself is life. It can be nothing but that. So this tells us there's no soul past redemption. There's no soul that is ever eternally damned or never, no matter, take the worst people that have ever lived on earth. Yes, they've lost so much spiritual power in what they've done. They have sunk to the lower dimensions, but even those in the lower dimensions will be given the chance to climb back up. So while there's no hell in an ultimate sense, there are hellish regions. There are regions where souls wind up because they have lost so much power through the horrible things they've done. They don't have the energy to get to the higher realms, because the key to the other side, first of all, have to remember the other side isn't one place, it's many places. In my Father's house are many mansions, and it's tiered according to levels of consciousness and power. So right now we are in a vibratory state this very minute. You are, I am. If this was our day to go home, I'd take the energy I have right now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, and that would determine where I end up on the other side. It's like attracting like. It's not punishment and reward. So if I've been built, that's why Barbara says the most precious thing you possess is your light. It's your passport to eternity. So build up more light in your aura. Now, if I've been doing that, I could find myself on a higher dimension on the other side. If I've been lying, cheating, stealing, murdering, whatever, I'm causing havoc and hurting people, but I'm also what we call devolving. I can wind up at a lower level of evolution than when I started. And then it's a difficult climb back up. So that's the hellish. And Barbara described in the book some of her experiences there, and they're not fun places. But even down there, the Holy Ones are helping them to, try to come back. The problem is when you've been so steeped in that, you don't wake up. It's not like, oh, I realize I've made a mistake. No, you're still in that mindset. And sometimes it can take quite a while to break it, and then of course there's the anguish. It's extreme anguish at that point to think, can you imagine coming to terms that you were a brutal tyrant and really seeing, that's got to be a horrifying experience to go through, but you have to go through it if you're ever going to get redeemed, get back up into the light. But eventually, the old expression is every knee bends, and eventually we do find our way home. It just may be a longer road for some. And this brings up one last point. Our evolution, through the many lifetimes, as we like to say, is not a straight line upward. All of us have these lifetimes where we do great things and lifetimes where we muff it up. Good things, muff it up. It's a little bit like the stock market graph, up and down. But it is an upward trend. And again, when you get that calling, finally the soul says, enough already. I don't want to play the yo-yo of life anymore. I want to get to my home. And then you're determined. I would say if I had one, redeeming quality in this life, it was determination. I was not going to because my environment when I had my awakening was not supportive of this. I had a great upbringing. I loved the people around me, but they were in a very different place.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of determination not to, just ease up on the pedal.
Yeah. Dimitri, what is the difference between spiritual potential and sort of our soul's potential and our soul's purpose? Are they synonymous, or is there something different within
Well,
those?
that's a great question too. So soul potential or spiritual potential, we would equate those two. That's a personal thing with you and the divine. How far up that spiritual ladder can you climb in this incarnation? That's your potential. And you have been empowered to achieve it, but it's not going to be easy. Like you're saying, it can be disorienting, all the journey, but that's just, confusion is the beginning of understanding, right? So it's just the beginning of it. Purpose, however, is not a personal thing. Purpose is, how do I serve the greater good? So that is engaged, but the two are intertwined. If I'm meant to be, so give you a great example, Barbara met the great filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille. It's a really funny story how he met her, but basically, bottom line, she's much younger than him. He's already an old man, and he used to be kind of strict, right? But to her, he just opened up, and when she looked at him, she saw the mystic sight. This guy is a mystic, and he saw it in her. It's not in any of his biography books, right? That was his personal potential that he was working on. His purpose, though, was not to be a spiritual teacher. His purpose was to be a pioneer in the film industry, and look at what he did. In that day when the Ten Commandments come, I still like that movie. Some people think it's a little hokey, but I still like it.
We like it too.
Yeah, that change. People said, "You helped me find God again." This wasn't a movie. This was more than a movie, right? It was the big blockbuster of its day. Now, Barbara thought her career, her purpose was going to be entertainment, but the Holy One said, it's not. You are meant to be a teacher. So in her case, her potential, how far up she was meant to go in the ladder, and her purpose to be a teacher, that was the journey. I thought film was going to be my purpose, right? But then when I had my awakening, I couldn't give, I like to say film is sort of a jealous mistress. It wants all of you, right? Especially if you're going to really climb up that ladder in the film industry. I couldn't do it with the same zeal because something else came in my life. And then later I realized that was not actually my purpose in life. My purpose was to be a metaphysician as a career. Not everybody. And we say in the classes, look, because you've had the awakening, don't quit your day job, right? Just keep doing what you're doing, because you being that accountant, that could be very much your purpose, but pursue your potential at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you're guided through what you are inspired to sort of move towards, what sort of opens up from that regard.
Yeah, and I love this other teaching too. The seeking of the philosopher's stone sets the condition to find it. So before you incarnate on earth the things you're meant to accomplish, but yes, it's submerged, and it's in the struggle that you seek. Look, you're dating, right? You may date many people, but guess what? The people you're really meant to marry, especially if you're going to have children, that's in your tapestry of life. That's decided before you even incarnated. So what if you marry 50, date 50, not marry 50 people, but let's say you date 50 people, but this one you say, oh, wow, there's something special here. Now, you could say it's romantic attraction, but it's more than that. You're saying, I have something to do with this person, and you're in their tapestry too, so they're getting the same signals. Now, if you're too enamored with this person over here, you could actually make the wrong move and literally marry the wrong person. But if you are just in touch, yes, there's going to be some struggle. You're right, but you will really realize, no, I can't really live without this person. This one's going to be a lot of fun. I do a lot of things with them, but I got to do something with this one. So yeah, our heart will tell us, but that's why it does help to meditate and not be too always engrossed in life, so that we can hear the signals talking to us, because it will. And same with career, all these things that we're doing. Yeah.
Dimitri, can you speak to us about some of the biggest pitfalls along the spiritual path?
Oh boy, there's a lot of them. The one we describe in the book is actually a dramatic one, the spiritual pitfall,
Mm,
the false prophets.
mm,
Now that the one danger with this being a global phenomena is, oh, there's money to be made, lots of money. I remember when it was in the 90s where the publishing industry first gave a category to mind, body, spirit, to this genre. So that told me they see it commercially. There's a commercial viability that before the 1990s was not there.
mm.
Right now, I'm not saying there weren't still popular things before then, but now, so you have these false prophets that try to trip people up, just like anything, right? So you've got to be careful because, now a lot of people try to pursue the path on their own. And to a certain degree you can, but I can tell you, I've been studying with Barbara for 40 years almost. And that's not uncommon for somebody in the tradition that we're going on there. I could have read every single book, gone to every public workshop. I wouldn't have come close to learning what I learned with her. You need a teacher at the right time, right? When the student's ready, the teacher appears. But you got to be discerning with these teachers to make sure that you're not getting one that's just out to make money, or worse, is out to spiritually disturb things. There are those kinds too. They really do have powers, but they're not using them for good. They're using them for selfish gains. And those are the worst false prophets of all. And unfortunately, they're out there too, because they're clever. They know what to do. And somebody say, well, why are these there? Well, because you always want to watch your motivation. Why are you pursuing this? Like you're saying, if you're doing it to feel like a little bit better than everybody else, you're in it for the wrong reason. If you're really in it to serve and to, okay, now so you do have to question your own motivation of what you're doing. And you have to be active in this. It's not going to happen just kind of kicking back. Now, again, I'm not saying quit your day job, but are you, just like we said about positive thinking, are you just saying, oh, just think positive, or are you actually really doing something about it? And when there are challenges in your life, are you running away from them, or are you seeing them as spiritual opportunities? I always love this. The Chinese symbol for crisis and opportunities, it's the same symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that tell you? I mean, somebody was really smart. It was probably from the Taoism, or so I don't know what it was, but but it's the same thing. Crisis is this turning point. Yes, you can look at it as a pessimistic, see how crappy the world is, I love the good old days, or you see it, oh, okay, life is dynamic. It's time to change. I got to roll with the punches. Why was Beethoven such a monumental composer? It wasn't just his talent. He went through 3 transformations in his own artistic life, and each one was transforming music along the way. He was constantly reinventing himself. So we have to go through that. Do we really want to be like the person we were when we were in our 20s, even if we had a great time when we were in our 20s? We're not in our 20s if we're not in it anymore. It's not just an age change. It's a period of different things. And, people retiring, great. You're retiring from a job, but you're not retiring from life. Don't just play golf for the next 20 years. You got to be productive. You look how much you've learned. Look how much you've accomplished. You're now going to just give it all up. Now your life can really start. I do like the Indian concepts of there's the period of the childhood, the period of the student, the period of the household provider, and then the period of seeking the spirituality. So the idea is you go through all the normal stages, but at a certain point, it does become about your evolution. It does become about your growth. It's an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
There was something that I read quite a while ago, and the teacher was saying something along the lines of the state of mind that you're in when you're taking the last breath of life in this lifetime is going to be the first breath of life that you take in when you re-enter in your next reincarnation. And I thought that was such a powerful message because it turned the responsibility to the individual here at this time now. So it's like, what are the changes that you want to make now? Do you want to keep repeating the same situation, circumstances, and
Right.
having the same roles of individuals coming into your life? Or do you actually want to do the work now so that you can evolve and grow?
And that you've got literally right up until the last moment.
You
It's
do.
you've got right
You-
until the last moment, that last breath, to make some pretty significant
Strides.
change and
Well,
strides.
we know a lot of people find God on their deathbed, right?
Hmm.
I don't believe in God.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Look, sometimes we make some bad mistakes and we won't be able to correct it in that life, but we can learn from it. So if I really muffed something up in my life and I say, you see how much life sucks? You see, that's the wrong way to exit Earth, right? But if you say, God, I know I mixed it up. I don't have time to correct it, but God, give me another chance and I'll do anything. That's a whole different motivating energy. And that really does set up a whole different rhythm in life. Because again, these are the experiences about learning. It's not about crime and punishment. It's we're here to learn. God loves us. So this is not to curse us and do that. But like any children, we make mistakes. We have to learn from our mistakes. Otherwise, we're not growing, and we don't want to stunt our growth. So yeah. Great.
Dimitri, I know we're coming close on time here now.
Yeah.
You had just mentioned around sort of crime and punishment and stuff. And one thing I would like, because you guys have dived into this quite a bit, your perspective of karma. And karma's come up in different ways in different conversations we've had over many different series that we've done. But anywhere from people see it as cause and effect, other people have seen it as literally attachment to the physical world. Other people say karma doesn't exist, or there's no sort of, but they're sort of perceiving it as more of a system of like punishment and reward. From your perspective, what is karma, and how does that interplay with
Okay,
our
we will
lives?
have to do another show on that one. No, we do a whole book on that, and there's most definitely karma, and it is a gigantic part of our life. I don't care how much you meditate. If you are not working out your karmic debits and credits, you ain't going anywhere. It's like you're still chained to whatever's going on. And that's another reason not to run away from difficult situations because they're difficult. You're in a difficult marriage. How do you know there's not karma there? Oh, I'm just bailing out. You know what? I didn't like what you said today. I'm divorcing you. Don't do that. Even if it isn't that difficult today to divorce like it was in days past. You may be walking away from a very important lesson in your life. Karma in its basic sense is the law of cause and effect. We are creating things with our actions. They are going to come back to us in the way we put it out. That's just a natural law of life. As Barb would say, if you plant onions, you're not going to get tomatoes. It's what you put out there. Now, the challenge is it doesn't always come back in the same lifetime. So the karmic conditions come back, and it's not, again, punishment. It's, first of all, if I spilled the milk and I walk out of the room and I come back and the milk is still spilled, why is there milk on the floor? Because you spilled it. And it's up to you to clean it up. It's not punishment, it's opportunity. If we could not correct our mistakes, again, how could we climb the spiritual ladder? But we are going to make mistakes. We are going to generate karma. Sometimes it'll be a very good one. If I do, why were you born so rich? Why would you get so successful? We think it's just the luck of the draw. It's not. These things have bigger. Why was Mozart born with that phenomenal talent? He earned it. It didn't just come that way. And he's not the exception. He's showing you what is possible when you achieve a height. So don't commiserate your problems or other people's successes. If you do see somebody, say, make them something to aim towards. But we are supposed to face our karma. Most people don't like to do it. I can share this from the karma classes we do. It's one of the most transformative classes of all that we do in the Seven Arts training, because we try to deal with real, it's not abstract, we try to deal with a real life. And I can't tell you how many times, especially in relationships, people start by being angry with somebody, and then they realize it's their karma. And when they really start working on that, not only does their whole attitude to them change, but they say, you know what? they're changing me. Their attitude to me changed. It's like the whole relationship moved in a different thing. They thought the problem was out there, and the problem was actually here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really, really fascinating study.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It makes me think of my past relationship. I was married for a duration of 7 years in my 20s, and I remember there was a lot in that relationship. I spoke with a psychic one time, and I actually asked him, is there still karmic link to that relationship, or is there stuff that needs to be worked out, or am I done? And the psychic had said, no, you're done. But I didn't feel it in the visceral feeling of what I felt in my body, and where my mind would go to sometimes, my triggers that would come up when I would be thinking of him or conversing with him. I knew that it wasn't done until I knew it was done. It
Right.
actually, there was a moment for me personally. There was a moment where I was by the dining table, and I felt this weight lift off of me, and I had the thought come in of him, and I knew at that moment it was done. It was complete. Whatever it was that we came to sort out within this lifetime, and we share a child together as well.
Oh,
That
well, that's a big
chapter
one.
was
See, that's a
completed.
big one. So you had some karma to have that child with him. It wasn't meant to be a marriage for the rest of your life. So that really does happen. We get that quite more frequently than you think in the class. Thank God you didn't listen to that psychic, because those decisions, by the way, we should make ourselves. We should never ask. I would never ask Barbara, is my karma over? Because I have to have that experience that you just had described. We'll know when it happens. You may ask for a reaffirmation if it's something you already feel in yourself, but you don't want anyone else to make a decision. Because let's say you walked away too soon, it would have been unfinished, and guess what? You would have been back again another life to finish it off. We want to get it done now. Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to. Yeah.
Well, Dimitri, where can people learn more about the work that you guys are doing, and any courses that you have on the go that we can send people to?
Yes. Well, first of all, the book is available in all the stores, okay, online and locally. And we have a website, spiritualarts.org, Spiritual Arts Institute. We have many classes to offer, workshops, other books to talk about. We do have a center in Southern California, but we do everything online as well. So please join us. We'd love for you to meet you and, converse with you further. Yeah.
Dimitri, one quick question before we leave. Are you afraid of death? And you referred to a few times in the interview, you said going home.
Yeah.
Can you speak of that a little bit for the audience?
You remind me, Woody Allen says, I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be there when it happens.
But I'm curious, with all the spiritual work that you've been doing, diving into
we're
this
human,
content.
right? We're human. So there's going to be a certain, when it's time to go. I'm not afraid of it in the sense I know what's going on there. I've experienced the other side, but you're still a human being. You're still in this incarnate body. So there's going to be a drama. And when I get to that point, you'll have to ask me then.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Dimitri, thank you so much for your time here with us. We'll have all of those information in the show notes so people can click on that. And thank you so much for being a part of this series.
A delight. It's been a delight. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you very much.